This is my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, April 3rd, 2023. Bonus incredible file, written by Snoo61002. Chronicles of a Demonologist and a Church Chaplain. Peace be upon you. I've been asked many times now, in response in conversations here, to share my experiences as an Order of St. John Chaplain and Demonologist. It's hard to know where to start, to be honest, but the most important thing I think is to say that these are my beliefs and experiences. I certainly don't begrudge you yours, and definitely don't want to assert any kind of authority over the beliefs of others. As chaplains, we are not positioned within a church because we minister to communities. It is not our place to judge any member of that community, but only to care for and support them in their needs. Also, rule number 1 of the job is to disprove, and disprove again. Here are a few experiences, some insight into our processes, what I'm allowed to speak to, how I got into the field, and then the training I undertook. Experiences. General and passive paranormal experiences are part and parcel of the job. I'll touch on it more later, but I'm not afraid of things that go bump in the night. I used to be, but once you've studied and understand it, the paranormal loses its excitement and becomes more of a puzzle that needs to be solved. My passive experiences are things like every month or so, I'll have a new knocking on our doors and windows, even though we live in a secure 3rd floor apartment. I get random prods and pokes when I'm by myself. Whispering, murmuring, growling, scratching, electrical interference, random myths, distorted shadows, and shadow figures here and there. This has all become a weekly occurrence, although when I say that, it's usually just one of these things that happen. I deal with it, and then it goes away almost immediately. The hitchhiker. This is probably my most fascinating one, because it's a recurring event that happens every couple of months, and I haven't yet solved the puzzle. I travel a lot for my role. At the moment, I've been sent to one of our small towns to train people, run mental health programs, or help with large-scale crisis responses. This results in my driving for long hours, sometimes during the day and sometimes at night. I will see the same stocky, hitchhiking figure walking along the side of the road in a black hoodie and jeans, with hood up and thumb out. I've never stopped, and he's never turned around when I've approached. I've seen him at every point in the day, at dawn, during the day, dusk, night. I've seen him in locations several hours drive from each location. At first I thought it was a coincidence, but hitchhiking is really uncommon in our country. We're small and buses are cheap. Howling. This is another recurring one, although it's newer. It's more annoying than anything else, to be honest, but several times my partner and I have been woken to a long howl in our bedroom. The windows are closed, apartment units like I said, but it's ruining my sleep and I really enjoy my sleep. Cloaked figure. This is one that I've thankfully resolved, but had to deal with over a series of years. To cut a long story short, whenever I was in the middle of a really tough case supporting someone in what we call spiritual warfare, I'd get a visit from whatever this was. It was the same every time, where I would have a dream of a cloaked figure, wake up to a spinning room, and be choking. I've had sleep paralysis episodes before, but this was certainly different. I'm still half convinced this was some kind of sleep apnea issue or episode. The only thing that makes me think it was paranormal is because it happened without fail when I dreamt of this figure, and it stopped after I put some intentional work into stopping it. There are experiences of clients that I cannot share because I've made a strict confidentiality agreement with them, and that rests on my soul. But generally speaking, I've helped people deal with their psychological issues more than spiritual ones. Some spiritual ones have been fascinating, and there's a feeling I get when there's a really obvious sign of oppression or infestation. It's like a heavy feeling in my chest and stuffy air. I've helped people by blessing their houses, which is a complicated process and, depending on your beliefs, can be somewhat risky. You essentially have to call forth the oppressing force, challenge it, rebuke it, and either condemn it or suppress it, if it can't be dealt with in one blessing. I've also helped people with deliverance, although I'm not big on the evangelical deliverance ministry. We're more of a traditional denomination, but I've never helped with an exorcism. I'm still relatively young for my role, and while I am a commissioned member of the order, I'm not yet a fully ordained minister. Processes. We have to be careful with what we share, and that's for a really inane reason. We often get people who either want to play a prank or desperately want something paranormal to be happening. And the information we don't share is essentially the key information we need while triaging our cases. What I can say is how we view the paranormal is unusual. Anything paranormal, by our theology, is demonological, angelic, or the Holy Spirit. When it comes to things that we humans get scared of, we're hardwired to be scared of the paranormal if we believe in it. It's a non-interactable nocturnal threat, and we are diurnal creatures. It's really easy to trigger our limbic system. However, and again just my view, I see paranormal activity as parlor tricks of a damned and jealous entity. But I have the power to send it back where it belongs, and it knows that, so it will struggle however it can. It will try to scare me because it is scared of me, and it should be. I'm there to do a job. It's like spiritual pest extermination, but a moving cup, whispering, growling, etc., is nowhere as scary to me as, say, driving in heavy rain, or the things I dealt with as a bouncer while I studied. Humans, dogs, even cats are more dangerous than most hauntings or paranormal experiences. One exception is that possession is incredibly dangerous, but intensely rare. I'm not scared of these things, not because I'm tough or brave, but because they're not actually dangerous, and they need to be condemned. That being said, if we go through an intensive investigatory process, it looks like this. We are a medical order. We're the Knights Hospitaller. We're also an indigenously focused arm of the order, and our indigeneity gives us a different worldview. When we assess a person, we don't just look at their spiritual health. We look at their social, physical, and psychological health as well. The first thing we will do, fully funded, is have the person see a doctor and a psychologist for assessment. This isn't because we think they're crazy, it's because we're building a comprehensive profile for exactly what we're dealing with. If someone is positive for physical or mental health issues that could be causing symptoms that they believe are spiritual, we need to treat those issues and see if the symptoms go away. Our church fully covers any costs associated with this process. If that doesn't solve the problem, my job is to definitively disprove the existence of paranormal activity or presences, but do so while believing there may well be a presence. Skepticism is a good thing most of the time, but it's sometimes bad. We're not there to assume the issue is mundane. We take all the information we can, assess it, and arrive at the likely outcomes, and we consider spiritual outcomes to be similarly as likely as mundane ones. However, we still need to disprove all of the mundane theories we can. But there's another layer. We also need to prove all of the mundane theories. This helps us have equality of information, so we won't be happy to say, oh, it's probably just this mundane thing, unless we can prove that. After this, if there is persistence of a spiritual issue, we begin our church-sanctified processes of blessings and protections for the affected individual. These interventions vary in intensity depending on the person, their faith relationship, and the persistence of whatever we're dealing with. How I got into the field. I didn't take a standard pathway. A standard pathway is that you attend a church that believes in demonological study, get as involved as possible with whatever you can, talk to the pastor about your desire to study, and follow this pathway, and see if the church will support you. It's a long pathway though. You can also try to become a lay chaplain for certain denominations, but honestly, the best thing you can do is wholeheartedly commit to a church, show them you're willing, and they'll support your journey. My pathway was that I studied a youth psych degree and specialized in youth gangs. Then a church was investing into the community and looking for a Christian with my expertise to be their youth pastor. I worked there for some time, and after a bit of a journey, came back to my home denomination, and that's who I work for now. I got a master's in professional practice, chaplaincy, and a diploma in demonology. But my psychology knowledge is what sets me apart from this ministry in the eyes of the church. I'm much more equipped to do a referral assessment than many of the clergy or congregation. My training in demonology comes from several sources. I completed the diploma at Bible College, but I've also done a small amount of training under a course from Bishop James Long. I did the Paranormal Academy of the United Kingdom online course because it's non-Christian, and I trained under our Archbishop for some time to specifically respond to the needs of the community in this regard. As a chaplain, This calling fit under my purview in his eyes. When I need to escalate church involvement, I can go straight to him. He taught me our beliefs, blessings, the processes of the church, etc. He also taught me our church's stance on demonology, which is old school. We're Anglican. King James was a demonologist, so it's a particular field for us. That's pretty much it. I'm always open to helping people on here, so if you have trouble, please just reach out through a message. I'm also happy to answer questions and engage in discourse, although I'm not going to be entirely engaging in what-ifs from the stories. For me, it's almost impossible to prove the paranormal online due to the nature of evidence and how easily it can be faked, so I'm not going to go into that, and I've peer-reviewed these things with my colleagues. Would you like even more content? Here's my Patreon. Now onto the stories. Case file number 1037, written by blah blah bay. The Chicken Pad Thai Enigma. Preface. No drugs were involved, and no history of schizophrenia, psychosis, etc. I want to add that this happened while I was laid off, and not long after, I also received a job offer using the same technique, a 55% raise over my last role, which was well paying to begin with. Okay, so let's get into it now, guys. So the story might be the definition of fluck around and find out. Long story short, I started tampering with the law of assumption a few months ago. If you're not familiar with it, the long and short of it is it's a specific manifestation technique. Anyway, there was one particular experiment I did that left me in shock for days, based on chicken pad thai. This story goes back to early December last year. I was craving chicken pad thai one day and decided, you know what, let me try to do this with pad thai and prove that I can be specific. The intention behind this wasn't to get free pad thai, but to prove something unequivocally to myself. Choosing something trivial was just to make it easier. So I got to work with visualization, and a few days later, some friends invited me over for dinner. They made orange chicken and rice, and I told the universe, or me, okay, close, but no, I want chicken pad thai. I go back to the drawing board and pinpoint what I needed to change. This time I focused on seeing the noodles, scallions, the cashews, the chicken, and imagined the taste as best as I could. I even imagined the place and manner in which it might happen, and then I just dropped it. Fast forward a couple days. I was out doing Uber Eats for a bit, and just as I was about to head home, I got an order from this place I'd occasionally go to, but not often, and where I had gotten to know some of the guys. On my way, I think, man, I'm so hungry. I hope they give me free food. Mind you, they had never given me free food up to that point. Also, they had zero knowledge that chicken pad thai is my favorite dish. They're also a storefront for 5 other virtual restaurants. Chinese food is their main one, then Vietnamese, Japanese, Thai, wings, and the other one that I can't recall. Meaning the menu options were at least 50 plus. Anyway, I pull up, and one of the guys I know is there, and he says, "Are you hungry?" And I go, "Ugh, yes, starved." And he goes, "I saved something. Been waiting all day to give it to someone special. Do you like chicken fried rice?" I love chicken fried rice. So it's established that it's chicken fried rice, allegedly. We chat a bit, and I leave with my free food thinking, okay, not pad thai, but I'm still grateful. Pretty cool. I'm mulling it over in my head while driving, and pulling over for my next pickup. As I'm sitting in my car, I glance over at the box and think, what if it's somehow chicken pad thai? For some reason, I suddenly got nervous and approached the box with trepidation. As I'm unpacking it, I stop cold when I have cracked it just enough to peek inside. You guys, I kid you not, inside was chicken pad thai. My jaw dropped and I was pretty sure I stopped breathing for a bit. And as all this is happening, some random guy comes up to my window asking for my number too. Excuse me, sir, but I'm a little busy having a meltdown right now. Anyway, it was so overwhelming that I bawled afterwards and went on a very long drive that night. So it begs the question, what came first? The chicken fried rice or the chicken pad thai? Was it always chicken pad thai? Or did I jump into a reality halfway through where it changed? As ridiculous as it sounds, this little bit of flummery is what made me start exploring the possibility of parallel dimensions. Would love to hear your thoughts. Case file number 1038, written by Cody Wumple, The Infinite Cookie Glitch. Because it's always good to clarify, I was in no way, shape, or form intoxicated, lacking sleep, or any state that can alter one's perception. This happened today. It is in the middle of the afternoon and it is my break, so I decided to grab a snack. I made some cookies the day before and took 4 of those to university because I know having a snack helps me get through the long afternoons. I go sit down in a corner to watch some silly YouTube videos. I grab a cookie and eat it. Then another, then that's right, another. I'm not really paying attention to the Tupperware as I'm grabbing the cookies at this point. I am focused on the video. I grab and eat another cookie, and another one. Then it hits me. There were only 4 cookies in my Tupperware. I know this because I packed them this morning, and this is the maximum amount that I allow myself. I finally look, and there's still 2 cookies sitting there. 2 out of 4, and I've eaten 6 already. The moment I finally look at the box while finishing them up, they of course actually disappear and do not make a reappearance. It honestly sounds like one of those infinity glitches from video games. I pondered on it all day and have decided to take it as a universe kindly granting me more snacks to help with this particularly long day of class. The cookies did not disappear literally as I watched them. They disappeared in my stomach as I ate them, and did not duplicate. Case file number 1039, written by Stu for You. Atlantis is a mythical place. So this glitch I witnessed happened in June 2022, when I was on a work trip. It still bothers me and makes me question it to this day. I work as a private stewardess on board a motor yacht. This job requires me to travel very often, so I spend a lot of time at Atlantis Resort on Paradise Island in the Bahamas. One day when I was off, my crew and I decided to go to the beach that is part of the Atlantis Resort. Only people staying at the hotel or marina can access it. It was myself and 2 of my other crewmates who decided to go. Our boat was docked in the marina village, part of the resort, but the beach was about a 20-minute power walk through the hotel casino and breezeways. So we left the boat, and the first place we had to walk through was the casino. Mind you, there were a lot of stairs to climb just to get into it, probably about 50, and many other stairs throughout the walk. These 2 crewmates are good friends of mine, and we're always talking and making jokes with each other. We talked pretty much the entire walk. As we're walking through the casino, I notice a lady maybe in her mid-30s standing near a machine with a stroller, digging through her purse looking for something. She stood out to me because I really liked the athletic dress and gym shoes she was wearing, although I usually like a lot of people's outfits, so it wasn't a weird thing for me to notice. I didn't feel the need to point her out to my crewmates because they were both guys and wouldn't appreciate her outfit as much as I did. The 3 of us continued walking at a swift pace through the casino, the lobby, and the outside breezeway paths, many random stairs. Eventually, after a solid 15 minutes of walking, we approached the kids' arcade and daycare center, and as we walked past it, I was shook. The woman in the athletic dress and stroller was in front of us, waiting in line at the daycare, as if she had been standing there for a bit. In my mind, I thought there's no way she could have gotten there before we did. There's just no way. There are way too many stairs for her to have done it by herself, especially with a stroller and a small child in it. What gets me is that it seemed as if she was standing there waiting for a bit. I thought about when we walked past her in the casino, she was rummaging through her purse looking for her phone or something, and had no intentions of leaving right after we passed. I didn't say anything to my crewmates when we walked past her, because I was making sure it was definitely her. As soon as we walked past, one of my crew members went, "Is it just me, or was she in the casino when we left?" I couldn't be happier when he said that because it was confirmation that I wasn't the only one who witnessed this. He and I both noticed her and thought the exact same reasonings as to how it would have been impossible for her to have beat us here. It was a really strange coincidence, and I just do not think she could have walked faster than the 3 of us, especially with a stroller to push and carry up and down the stairs. Since we spend so much time at Atlantis, we are for sure certain that the way we walked is the fastest way to get there. If there were any shortcuts, we would know about them. He and I still talk about how weird that encounter was. The whole time we were at the beach, we were discussing how the only logical explanation was that it had to be a glitch in the Matrix. Anyone else experienced this or something similar? It bothers me so much and I need to know the truth. Case file number 1040, written by Tainted Grey, When Time is Not Linear. This happened about 16 years ago, and I still don't know how to wrap my head around it. So my friend and I were sitting on my brother's bed watching TV, just chatting and hanging out. My brother had a box of metal BB pellets on the bed that we didn't bother moving because he had his stuff everywhere. While we were hanging out, my big German Shepherd Guinness came running into the room playfully and jumped onto the bed, causing the box of BB pellets to flip over and scatter everywhere. I still remember the sound of them hitting the hardwood floor. However, as this was happening, it was as though time reversed, literally rewound, and my dog ended up back on the floor as if he jumped down backwards, and all the BB pellets reversed back into the box. Even Guinness had a look of confusion on his face and he ran out of the room. When we looked down, there was absolutely no pellets on the ground, and the box was closed and secure on the bed. My friend also remembers this in vivid detail. Otherwise, I would probably convince myself it was a weird dream, but we both experienced it and remember it all these years later. We were probably 13-ish at the time. Anyone else ever experienced something like this? Case file number 1041, written by Sparkle Cheetah, My Multiversal Genes. As a Floridian, it's hot as fuck here, so I was moving my winter wardrobe into the boxes where my spring and summer clothes live for the winter. I usually go through my closet a few times a year, and it was time for a day of reorganizing. Long story short, I was refolding my stack of jeans. I own about 8 pairs of jeans. I noticed a pair that I had literally never seen before in my life. I know every pair of jeans I own in great detail. I didn't own a really good pair of jeans for the past 6 or 7 years, so I spent the last 2 or 3 years purchasing great jeans. This pair was a dark wash, size 2, extra long length, bootcut mini flares from Zara. Every time I looked in my closet, I saw these jeans and assumed they were the pair of size 3, extra length, dark wash bootcut mini flare jeans I had from American Eagle. I could tell the cut of them, although the same, were very obviously different. I even remember I purchased the American Eagle jeans on sale, BOGO half off, with a pair of distressed skinny jeans. Like I said, I know my jeans and their silhouette very well. The American Eagle jeans weren't denim, so I really never liked the stretchy material and never wore them. Anyways, I went to refold my jeans to make them look nice, and when I held these up, for some reason I stopped breathing. I've never seen these before. The length of the Zara jeans is also a few inches longer than the American Eagle jeans. They were folded in the exact same way I folded all my pants and were in the same place in the stack that the American Eagle jeans were always in, third from the bottom. Am I just losing my mind? As silly and small as it sounds, I just can't stop thinking about it all. Case file number 1042, written by Silas Here. My daughter and I, Lords of Spacetime. My daughter and I went to Albuquerque for a conference a few years ago. I was trying to find a place to eat dinner. There was tons of traffic and road construction, really frustrating driving conditions. I had the GPS going finally to a restaurant, and we were starving, so we constantly were checking the ETA, like 15 more minutes to dinner. Anyways, at around 5 minutes till we were due to arrive, I was driving over a bridge area. Traffic was still very heavy. I glanced quickly at the GPS, and it was spinning. I told my daughter, "Look." She saw it spin, looked back at traffic. Only a second had passed, but was now 30 minutes from the restaurant. The car going another way, and no sign of the bridge anywhere. I'm freaked out any time I think of this, and my daughter remembers it the same. When we hear a strange story, one of us will say, "Like that time we teleported." I don't know what to make of it, but we were not too happy about the extra time to get to the restaurant. Creepy file number 86, written by M. Somerville J. Room 1709. It was April of 2008. I was 20 and living in Denver for a year-long contract with a non-profit in Boulder. My girlfriend, now wife, and my best friend Tim drove to Colorado from our home state to visit me for my 21st birthday. The non-profit I was working for housed their workers in dorm rooms and drinking was not allowed on site, nor were visitors allowed to stay overnight. So, I booked a hotel room in downtown Denver for the weekend, where we could drink in honor of my 21st. The hotel was big, very nice, and in a safe, central area of the city. So nice, in fact, that it was the same hotel that most of the politicians would later stay at during the DNC convention of '08 that took place in Denver later that summer. My wife and Tim arrived Saturday morning, and we all met up at the hotel. The day was fantastic. We drank across the city most of the day. By about 1 a.m., we got back to the hotel. The room was typical with 2 queen beds. Bed number 1 was close to a big window looking out across the city. Bed number 2 was pushed against the wall with a door that opened to the bathroom. You couldn't see the door entryway to our room unless you were at the foot of bed number 1. We drank more and chatted in the room until about 4 a.m. My wife was laying at the head of bed number 2, flipping through the TV. Tim and I were seated at the foot of bed number 1, staring out of the window as we talked. While chit-chatting, I heard some movement and the sound of a door opening. Without looking away from the window, I assumed it was my wife getting up to use the bathroom. A few minutes passed by and I thought I heard movement again, so I finally turned around to look. I saw my wife still lounging in bed number 2 as she had been before. "Did you get up a few minutes ago and use the bathroom?" I asked her. "No," she replied. "I thought I heard a door," I said back to her, with her looking confused back at me. "Yeah, I thought I heard that too," Tim said, breaking his own gaze from the window. It was then I started to run cold and sobered up pretty quickly. Very softly, I heard Tim say, "I think there's someone in our room." I lurched forward from the foot of the bed to look into the pitch-black entryway. I could barely make it out, and I wanted to believe I wasn't seeing it. But there was a man dressed in all black, with a black baseball cap pressed into the 90-degree corner of the entryway where the room door and wall met. Absolute silence fell on the room, and it felt like hours passed by as I started to panic in my mind like no way I ever have in my entire life. We all knew. We knew we weren't alone and hadn't been for a while, and he knew we spotted him. Eventually, Tim got the courage to meekly speak in the direction of the entryway and said, "Hey, man, is there something we can help you with?" Another period of silence that felt like an eternity went by. He slumped off the edge of the wall a little, into the light, and made eye contact with Tim and I. We all just stared at each other. Then eventually, he spoke up and said, "Is this room 1709? "No, man, it's not," Tim said, stroking his beard nervously. He stared at us for a while longer, raising his eyebrows and shaking his head. He then turned around and left. We then erupted into a million curse words and paced around the room. I called the front desk. They told me that he was drunk and they found him in the stairwell, but directed him back to the right room. Minutes later, Tim called the front desk and they told him he was not a guest. He was apprehended in the stairwell and taken into police custody. Then a while later, they told my wife he disappeared and they had no idea who he was or what he was doing. They told her there wasn't even a room 1709 in the hotel. We got 3 different stories. We still have no idea what that was all about, or how he managed to get a keycard to a room. We were sure the door was closed. It was easily the most terrifying moment of my life. Always use the latch in the hotel rooms. We got the stay refunded and about $200 in credit for food from the hotel. We should have sued, but we were young and dumb. Case file number 1043, written by Montfar, The Black Triangle Encounter. I encountered a black triangle UFO just a little over 20 years ago. Myself and 3 of my friends were all sitting in my backyard on my picnic table, the top of it so we were all facing the same way, looking up at the clear night sky one evening in the small town we lived in. We had just left the bar and were chatting about our night and smoking plants when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we saw something really big, all black, triangle in shape, with no lights whatsoever on it appear in the night sky. It was a split second that we all saw it move from one end of the sky to the other, and it covered the stars as it did this. It was that massive. Easily the size of a football field, no joke. All of us just looked at each other and exclaimed at the same time, "Holy shiznit, did you just see that?" It was insane. I'll never forget it. Then, a few weeks after the incident, I had a very vivid dream that I was on a very cold operating table with what I could only sense as beings that were not human, and they were tickling me each time they touched me, almost like a faint electrical current. there were more than one touching me in different places all at one time. It was weird because I could feel their physical touches while asleep, like I was actually there. I wasn't able to see anything while this was going on. I'm pretty sure I had something over my face, so I couldn't see them or anything around me. However, I didn't feel threatened or scared by them at all. The dream ended abruptly, and I woke up in my bed. It seemed so real to me, and to this day I fully believe I was abducted while asleep so they could study me. I have not seen the black triangle in the sky since, or had any more alien abduction dreams, thankfully. But it was definitely one of the strangest occurrences for me to date. Has anyone else had a similar encounter? Case file number 1044, written by Kinetic Co., Schrödinger's elevator. I live on the 15th floor of a condo. One day, my family was taking one of the 3 elevators to the ground, first floor. On the way down, the elevator stopped on the 4th floor and the doors opened to a mother and her son. This was during the pandemic where people didn't share elevators, so they said they would get on the next one. The doors proceeded to close, and the elevator goes straight to the ground floor with no other stops, which takes about maybe 5 seconds to reach the ground floor from the 4th floor. When we step out of the elevator, we see the mother and son already walking halfway down the hall towards the lobby of our building. Note that the stairwell access requires a few different staircases with locked doors where you go from the 2nd floor to the 1st. Did they call 2 elevators somehow? Was the other one faster than the one we were in? I mean, it takes about 5 seconds to get into an elevator, push the button, and get it going. How did they beat us? Case file number 1045, written by Cereal Milk 001, The Tesco Bag Woman. I can't explain what happened today, and I've never come across anything like it in my life. I literally can't stop thinking about it. Today I was leaving work after a meeting and driving home on my all too familiar route. Before anyone asks, yes, I was sober, and no, I wasn't under the influence of any drugs. I also have no mental health issues or under any abnormal stress. Anyway, I was coming to a turnoff on the road, and there was a car in front of me that had stopped to let traffic that had the right of way pass. This is a popular crossing for people trying to skip the road. As I came to a stop, I noticed a woman wanting to cross. She stood out to me instantly as she was carrying a Tesco bag at a weird angle. Instead of holding it by the straps, she had the opening curled up and was holding it out in front of her chest. She appeared in her mid-50s and was wearing a woolly hat, parka jacket, and the hood up. She hurt my head a little, as you could tell she didn't have much money and had a sad expression on her face. I waved my hand to signal to her to go ahead and cross in front of me, and she gave me a gentle nod to thank me. I thought nothing more of it until I traveled around 10 minutes in the direction of which she was coming from. As I pulled to a set of red lights, I put on my handbrake, and someone caught my eye to the left of my vision. It was the same exact woman, same clothing, carrying the same bag, heading in the same direction she was originally heading towards. This happened at 2:30-ish p.m., and it is now 10 p.m. I can't stop thinking about it. It would be almost impossible for her to get there ahead of me via means of transport or walking. I know the buses that pass this route, and none of them pass me by. I thought that maybe she caught a ride from someone, but again, I would have been ahead of them, and to get to where I spotted her the second time, you'd have to go around yourself, adding around 20 minutes extra journey time. I'm a skeptical person, so I told my wife, and she just kind of laughed it off and didn't take me seriously. Anyone have any ideas or similar stories? I'm really trying to make sense of this for my own sanity. Case notes for the bonus file: Chronicles of a Demonologist and a Chaplain. Honestly, this was just a cool set of stories, experiences, and just your life path and the training process to become a chaplain demonologist. So fascinating. I didn't know I would actually be so engrossed in a story like this, but it's really cool. It's one of the perks of reading stories constantly is I have to go and read so many of them. I am constantly surprised at what I find interesting. And I'm very impressed at how rigorously you apply the scientific method within this envelope of religious investigation. You wouldn't necessarily expect that from the outside point of view. The idea that religion is all just about faith, not investigation. Definitely bucks the trend in that. My thoughts about demons. perhaps the most important question is, are most spirits just spirits and they're not demons? Demons are a separate category? Is it like in Supernatural where a demon is a soul that was twisted by being in hell and tortured for eons, and after a certain point they just break and become evil? Something like that, maybe? Or is it just a malicious spirit that died, a person that was evil, and then when they die, their spirit lingers behind and that's a demon? Is it interchangeable? And how are possessions possible? Because as you mentioned, they're extremely rare. There's very few stories I've read revolving around possession. I'm glad that they're rare, but it begs the question of why. Is it that difficult to possess someone? Because, I mean, if a demon can do it, I'm assuming they would want to all the time. So there's a fundamental limitation on their ability to do it. Curious. But it's interesting how you describe spirits and supernatural events in the same way that I was thinking about it too. Like, they're mostly just harmless parlor tricks, almost never harming someone or killing them. It's just meant to instill fear or even just make their presence known. But that's it. They don't seem to be able to do more, or they're not willing to. They're just a puzzle to be solved. Exactly as you say. I love that. And you know, I'm not specifically a religious person. I think I've mentioned that a few times on the channel. I consider myself agnostic. I don't know what the ultimate truth is. I don't know if we live in a simulation. I don't know if there's a God out there. I don't know if there is a God. Is it a Christian God, or Catholic, or Jewish, or Muslim, or any other sect of faith? I don't know. All I can say is I try to examine the world and base my life around that, you know, and just look inside myself as well and think, okay, what is good and what isn't? Because I think we all have an innate sense of that. I think if you try to just be as good as possible in what we all have baked into us, you know, if that's some cosmic rule, or if God wove us in a certain sense with this understanding of right and wrong, it's pretty clear cut, if you ask me. You know, don't harm others and be honest. And don't drop Dave. Definitely sinful to do that. But yeah, very cool stories. Very glad you shared this with us. And now time for the quote of the day. Brevity is the soul of wit. Shakespeare. This is something I need to apply to myself a bit more. I can go on tangents all the time. But yeah, this is similar to the expression of, if you can't explain something simply, you probably don't really understand it. The more you understand a complex topic, the more you're able to distill it down into a small nugget of wisdom. Case notes for file 1037. The Chicken Pad Thai Enigma. Manifestations are interesting to me, mainly because I don't think it's a direct creation of matter. In this case, I don't think your mind literally created the chicken pad thai. It was still just created from ingredients and cooked by the chefs in the restaurant. What's more interesting is how you were guided into that exact area where you needed to be for your will to not be manifested exactly, but fulfilled, I guess is the word. It's like turning on in a video game the directional cheats, the one that will just guide you towards your next objective. While we don't physically see a light that points us in the correct direction, we still have a general sense of where to go. It's intuitive and automatic, but we have to be true to ourselves. It's kind of like in Pirates of the Caribbean. Jack's compass will direct him towards what he wants most, but he has to be honest about what he really does want most, and if he doesn't know what he wants most, he may be surprised when he gets to the destination. This isn't what I thought I wanted most, but it actually is. I guess the universe truly knows our actual desire. Case notes for file 1038. The Infinite Cookie Glitch. All the cookies, now you're speaking my glitch language. Fantastic. Hard to imagine a better one, besides maybe gold or silver or cash just duplicating in your hands, or, you know, you have cash in the Tupperware and that duplicates. But indeed, the real question is the food mass that you just ate from the cookies vanishing from your own stomach in order to balance out the mass equation, energy-mass balance in the universe? Supposedly you can't create anything from nothing. If something does appear, it requires extra energy or mass, where mass is just a confined state of energy. The only exception to this rule is if you draw mass or energy from a different parallel universe, which is, I think, often what is happening in these duplication events, or things just appear out of nowhere. So, in another universe, instead of having extra cookies, you have less. Not a good place to be. And now time for the quote of the day. Although our intellect often longs for clarity and certainty, our nature often finds uncertainty fascinating. Karl von Clausewitz. Yeah, this swings right back towards what I keep saying, in that life is only interesting because of the mystery. We are compelled to solve the mystery, but to solve it, especially if there are no other mysteries to explore, that's a mistake. You need to leave at least one mystery alive. And if you have no mysteries in your life, it's just living on white bread and water all your life. No good. I do find the juxtaposition rather interesting in that we're so compelled to solve mysteries, and yet to do so actually makes us less happy. The journey is important, not the destination. I suppose if you have multiple destinations, that's fine, but the final destination, it's never going to be as satisfying as the journey itself, in my view. If you have nothing to strive for, I guess the game is over. Case notes for file 1039. Atlantis is a mythical place. So the only explanation I could think of the mundane variety would be some sort of elderly or disabled shuttle and elevator service. But you mentioned in the comments that there are elevators, but they're very slow. So it doesn't seem like this would be possible, and obviously just going up the stairs wouldn't be enough. You need to walk the rest of the way as well. Power walking, as you say. So could an old lady with a stroller beat you in that distance? Unless there really is a shortcut that cuts through the whole thing that you don't know about. Thing is, there aren't a lot of options here. It can't be astral projection, because if you project your soul, you're not going to also project your kid as well, and the stroller. That physical matter, I don't think you can project things like that. Like the other story where the grandma was driving in a car when she's supposed to be in Mexico. No, that doesn't fit. Now is it multiversal peering? That's a bit more possible, but it's still very odd. Why would she be in the same place, dressed the same way with the stroller, but beat out the other copy of herself in a different universe? It's conceivable, small differences, butterfly effect and all that, but outside of multiversal peering, I don't see it. I don't think it's a doppelganger either because of the child. The child is what really shifts things. Multiversal peering is harder to place as well because your coworker also saw her both times. So he would also be peering at the same time in the same universe. It's altogether rather weird. So in a nutshell, I think Atlantis stumped me. I kinda want to go gambling now though. Case notes for file 1040. When time is not linear. So our perception of time is linear, but it's the same way as watching a movie. The standard pathway to watch it is from start to end, but you can rewind it, you can jump to different segments, and the most interesting thing to me is the concept that reality is buffered, but also buffered within different segments. So it's not like a movie exactly, it's like there's a whole movie playing out, but in localized segments, time can be manipulated. It's like in an MMORPG in a server-based grid, and there's different grids, so if you're in a specific grid, there's a certain server responsible for that grid, and you can make alterations in that zone that won't affect other zones outside of it. And it's kind of like this in physics. We all have our own reference frame, and it's tied to the speed of causality, which people know as the speed of light. Can the grid be shrunk down smaller? So localized events in a reference frame can happen in a much smaller environment. If so, that would explain a whole lot of time anomalies, because it literally can just be manipulated from the server center. A developer could just say, well, in this grid, where you and your friend were with the pellets and the dog, they just rewind time. It could be as simple as a couple clicks of a button, because reality was already written. Even if it isn't buffered at that point, you already experienced what happened, so it could just be rewound. The thing is, it would mean that in that area, that localized grid, time would be different than the outside world. The thing is, it's just a few seconds, so you wouldn't even, unless you were trying to measure it with an atomic clock inside and an atomic clock outside of that reference frame, you would never know. You lost a few seconds, you can never quantify that. There's no way to do it. So that actually makes a whole bunch of sense. It fits perfectly well. How cool. Just, the only real question then is, why did it happen? Was it an error, or did someone actually choose to do that for some reason? Is there a reason why the pellets couldn't fall on the floor for some reason that would somehow injure you, maybe? Someone would slip on it and bang their head and die? And then how does it fit into quantum immortality? Because, what does it matter if you die in one copy of a quadrillion Googleplex copies of in the multiverse? It doesn't seem to make any difference. But maybe there's a lot more going on and it's all interconnected. I can just try to piece individual components together, and The picture isn't entirely clear when you try to combine it all, but I understand a lot more than I did when I started, that's for sure. We all do now. Case notes for file 1041, the multiversal genes. So I only own 2 pairs of jeans, well, 3 now. I just bought another pair because the other ones were ripping apart. And I can say, you know, being a minimalist and not owning a lot of clothes, if I just saw another pair that was in my closet, I would be completely stumped. And yeah, you say, it's a small thing, but it's impossible. I mean, it's like the frozen peas in a different story. Someone broke in just to put frozen peas in your fridge or freezer, or someone broke in here to leave a pair of pants that fit me. So a simple transfer from a different universe, and one of those copies that you had pairs of pants that fit you because they were yours, you actually wore them over there. And over there, they're just missing. It's kinda simple. And now time for the quote of the day. There is nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. Ernest Hemingway. It's like the first time you go to the gym, people will often be afraid because they're going to compare themselves to other people that have been there for years. And, you know, maybe they're overweight, maybe they're not very strong. Some people go to the gym and they can't even bench press the bar, just the empty bar. You know, is that wrong? Are you bad because you're not as strong as other people? No. We all have a base template that we start off from genetics, you know, our life circumstances, life, as they say, life isn't fair. So if you're going to compare yourself to others, you have to compare their entire life path. You know, did you start at the exact same point in time? Did you have better parents? Did you have more money growing up? Did you have better genetics? You never got sick? You just had better teachers? There's an infinite pool of variables to choose from that could determine or influence where someone ends up in life. That doesn't mean don't strive to improve, of course not. You know, life isn't fair, but even if you're dealt a bad hand, make the best of it. And that's where it comes into place. Instead of comparing yourself to people around you, you know, you'll never be the best. You could be Larry Wheels, who, if you don't know, he's a bodybuilder, powerlifter, you know, he's extremely strong, probably one of the strongest in the world, and yet he'll go into competitions for arm wrestling and be humbled by people that are just so much better in that field. So even if you're the best, the number one in the entire world in some area, you're not better than everyone else. You're just better in that one specific area. The real goal is to better yourself. And yeah, I mean, you can still consider where you stand, like in a general sense. If you can run a marathon, you can appreciate the fact that, yeah, most people can't run marathons, so that's good, that's impressive. But it's a difference between comparing yourself to individual other people versus like the macro statistical scale to have an idea of where you're at. That's fine. I think that's healthy. But just try not to focus too much on people that are at a more advanced stage than you. Ultimately, always strive to make progress, but try to compare yourself to who you were yesterday. If you're better than who you were yesterday, you're doing well. And just keep on doing that, and yeah, eventually you'll be truly amazing. You know, when I look back at where I was at when I started the channel over 3 years ago, you know, I've come a long way. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off. Case notes are file 1042. Masters of Spacetime, my daughter and I. So the compass spinning is fascinating. It means there was electromagnetic interference. Not surprising, but if spacetime portals are involved in these teleportation events, and so frequently experienced while driving, it means one additional piece to the puzzle was added. EM interference. It might mean there's technology involved. Maybe aliens are causing these, or maybe it's even an artifact of their own technology. If aliens are here, I would imagine they would have advanced cloaking technology. So we wouldn't even be able to see them most of the time unless they wanted us to, or unless it was malfunctioning on their end. But I don't think that's very likely. No, I think this could be artifacts of distorting spacetime, and if they're able to interfere with gravity itself without thrust, displacing an object behind them, they're just able to levitate via magnetism. But a more advanced version that's able to actually manipulate spacetime itself, I could imagine this causing issues with the fabric of spacetime itself. It's funny, in Star Trek, eventually they reach a point where they realize their warp drives are actually damaging the fabric of spacetime. Maybe something like that is going on here. Maybe it's not the universe being unstable. Maybe it's aliens. Case notes for the creepy file number 86, room 1709. So I know in the moment this would have been horrifyingly unsettling. But something about the line of him asking casually what room it was comes off as a bit funny in the moment when I was reading it. It says room 1709. Was he actually drunk? Or was he trying to steal something and didn't expect people to be in the room at that hour? Or maybe he expected you to be sleeping. And one thing I recommend that people get when staying in hotels or any unfamiliar place is a door stopper. There's ones that attach into the door bolt area, where the door closes and the bolt from the door handle goes into the actual bracket of the wall. You can attach in something that connects within it. It's like a metal bracket. It's very light, portable, and it just prevents the door from being opened. I mean, you could brute force it fairly easily, but it would make a large noise and you couldn't just pick the lock and come in stealthily. Or if you have the key. I wonder if this person had help from the front desk. Maybe that would explain why there were 3 different stories, just trying to make you go away, but you kept asking questions. My gut says there's more going on here than just a drunkard. Of course, it happened so long ago you'll never know, but I'm glad you were safe. That's the main point. And now time for the quote of the day. We must all suffer from one of 2 pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. The difference is that discipline weighs in ounces, while regret weighs in tons. Jim Rohn. Yeah, regret is heavy. You ever think back on your past and think, that was an opportunity I missed. I should have done that. I should have gone on the outing with my friends. I should have climbed that mountain. I should have been more bold. Or maybe you regret a choice that you made that was too risky. It's not as clear-cut as sometimes people want it to be, because sometimes taking too many risks is the problem and the thing you regret. And of course, sometimes not taking enough risks is what you regret. There's no redos in life unless you have like some weird space-time rewind anomaly. Generally speaking, the moves you make, those are the moves and you have to live with. If you're not happy with them, there's not much that can be changed about it. It may just be that this is one template of the world, one universe in a great multiversal simulation, and when we eventually do die for real, we just awaken in the real world and get to pick a new adventure. It's an interesting concept, and I don't think it takes away from the meaning of life if it's true. I don't think it means that it's not worth living life and trying your best and making the best of it. Not at all. I think it's important to know what you want from life and to go for it. And while regret is inevitable, don't let it weigh you down in the tons that it is. Push it off, brush it off. It's not worth letting it destroy your life. Case notes are file 1043, the Black Triangle Encounter. So if I had to venture a guess, I'd say you were abducted earlier in time than when you had the dream. The dream was your mind slowly piecing together what was suppressed. I think aliens have memory suppression technology, but it's clear it doesn't work perfectly. And there's methods and techniques you can use, like hypnotherapy, to recover them. In some cases, just dreaming, the reorientation of the synapses and memories in your brain, can recover the severed connections. The mind is a giant maze of networks, synapses trying to connect to each other, and those connections represent our memories. If they're blocked, or maybe just chemically suppressed, then you can't access the memories. But if you rewire a different path around the maze to get to the same destination, it's like those maze games, puzzles that you have to solve, like you start here, you end there, how do you get there? Well, if you just rewrite a different path, that's kind of easy. And that can happen via dreaming. So I think you were recovering those suppressed memories. I don't necessarily think they were happening while you were dreaming at that time period. Curious though, do aliens really just want to study us? At this point, I would imagine that they have enough data on us. So what are they really after? Is it something more than just curiosity? I don't think they're malicious necessarily, or outright evil. I don't think they want to exterminate us or enslave us. They could have done that so easily. They may just be observing and trying to gather as much data as possible. Case notes for file 1044, Schrödinger's elevator. So I believe when we're isolated from the rest of the universe, in a room or a metal box in this case, and actually maybe the fact that it is a metal box amplifies the isolation. It's harder for any outside matter or energy to get into that box if it's metal versus just like a cardboard box or something. We are in a sense disconnected from reality. So maybe not a full disconnect, but a soft patting away. And we know that any interaction with matter can collapse its waveform and alter it in other ways, which is why we can't know everything about particles, and because of the uncertainty principle, you can't observe something without changing it. Most likely, I think time simply warped in that metal box, the confinement. So for you, it felt like 5 seconds, but in reality, it might have been 30. Case notes for file 1045, the Tesco bag woman. So sometimes most known glitch types don't really fit well. Doppelganger, astral projection. I can't see them applying because of the bag itself. They wouldn't carry over. If you astrally project, you're going to take the clothes that you're wearing at the moment, but nothing else. Like the car, you wouldn't take it for driving, you wouldn't take the bag with you, probably not the bag. So those remnants that come along and tag along, to me shave away the possibility of it being just a doppelganger or astral projection. Multiversal peering is often the answer that I go to, but it's still odd. Why was the woman so displaced? If it's a similar universe, presumably nearby, should be relatively similar in location. The fact she was 10 minutes away, still heading in the same direction. I guess maybe something weird happened in that universe where she was delayed for 10 minutes. And now time for the quote of the day. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Unknown, but not Buddha, although it's attributed to him. This is a very important quote. I see so many people so angry all the time. And sometimes there's rational reason to be angry, but it doesn't help you. Unless you can act on that anger in a way to actually produce justice but even then, most of the time you just end up hurting yourself and others innocent people. It's like in Arcane, where they want to fight off the oppression, and generally speaking they have just cause for that, but you end up harming so many other people. I think anger is so powerful because we can use it to justify unimaginable horrors. So try to dissipate it if at all possible. And if something or someone is making you angry, try to distance yourself from the situation itself. You don't have to be around people you don't like. That's a very important lesson. Even if it's family, I think if they're treating you poorly, give them chances to change. Tell them honestly, without anger. Just be honest and upfront of what's going on. And, I don't think this is acceptable. Please change. Can you understand my perspective? If people won't change to abide by how you want to be treated, then just leave. It's not wrong to do that. In fact, it's exceedingly correct.